Donald Trump is not having a good Sunday. Let me tell you what's going down. First off, I guess Donald Trump is taking his anger, resentment, and overall insecurities out on the White House, just continuing to rip up the Rose Garden. I think they're trying to turn the Rose Garden into like a deck. But here's what the Rose Garden looks like in the White House. It just goes and shows you that everything this guy touches dies, and he's just a complete and utter failure in everything. We learned this morning as well, but we've reported on it before on the Midas Touch Network. But Al Jazeera is reporting it, and others are reporting it that Iran may be able to restart its uranium enrichment in a matter of months, despite the wave of attacks by the U.S. and Israel that targeted its nuclear infrastructure. This comes from the IAEA chief, Rafael Grossi. And so really the United States strikes, as confirmed by our own intelligence agencies and European intelligence agencies, did not achieve its missions. If anything, it's emboldened Iran, and we'll see if the ceasefire really holds or not. I suspect that it isn't. One of the things we learned as well, we've done lots of reports about the disastrous budget bill, how it ultimately made it through the hurdle of proceeding to a vote. Remember how on Saturday it really went until about 11 p.m. East Coast time, and we're trying to figure out how did these kind of right-wing MAGA Republicans who said they were never going to vote for it. Well, Lisa Murkowski, for example, from Alaska, she cut a last-minute deal that will only benefit Alaska, about 800,000 people in Alaska. And so the people of Alaska, they're going to be exempted from a lot of the provisions that are going to kill other Americans. Like they'll be able to keep their supplemental nutrition assistance program and food stamps and some of the other attacks that could be devastating and throwing other people off healthcare across the country. They're gonna take it a little easier on Alaska, a state with a small population. But this is what the MAGA Republicans do, pitting Americans against Americans. And I have to imagine, I know we have a lot of Alaska Midas Touch followers, to be used as pawns, where because your senator did that, other Americans are going to die. I just want you to think about the sick calculus. So it was things like that, and also like MAGA Republican Senator Rick Scott got additional cuts from Medicaid, more Americans going to be killed. That was one of the things that the MAGA Republicans wanted to make sure that they put in this disastrous budget bill. And now one of the things that we're learning, so just think about this picture. You've got Donald Trump golfing right now. He's literally physically ripping to shreds the Rose Garden. He did not achieve the goals that he claimed he did in Iran. The world is far less stable. A disastrous budget bill has worked its way through the Senate and is poised to pass probably tomorrow or so, late tomorrow. That's going to kill millions of Americans. And these senators, the MAGA Republican senators, they're refusing to speak to the Senate parliamentarian because they know that their provisions would violate, remember that Byrd rule, which doesn't allow them to do certain things in reconciliation. So now what the MAGA Republican senators are doing, what they've kind of colluded with Donald Trump to do, is they're saying, we're not even going to speak to the parliamentarian. We're just going to ignore her and not show her the bill, basically. And of course, you know this by now, but this disastrous budget bill is the largest transfer of wealth in the history from low-income, working-class Americans to billionaires and decamillionaires. And I just want you to see as well that right-wing media is not even reporting on how this is going to crush solar energy and new technologies. So I use Ground News to find out where the media bias is at. So on an article like this, that the disastrous budget bill will hasten the end of wind and solar tax credits and impose new taxes on these types of important energy, especially energy that's needed right now as AI is picking up, you'll see that There's zero right-wing media that is covering this at all. Zero right-wing media. And I think that tells you why their followers are uneducated about what's happening. So I use ground news to as my research tool when I make these videos. It's essential for me to try to determine where the media bias may be so I can cut through it. Go to ground.news/MTN or scan the QR code right here and get 40% off Ground News's top tier Vantage plan, which is what I use. It'll give you unlimited access to all of the tools I have. Ground News is subscriber funded, so they don't rely on ads. That could also introduce bias. Subscribing supports our channel and their independent team working to keep the media transparent. I use their blind spot feature to say, is there a blind spot that right-wing media consumers are having or left-wing media consumers are having? And that's what I did right there. One more time, it's ground.news/MTN or scan the QR code, get that 40% off. Moving on. If you're a millionaire, if you're a billionaire, you are going to benefit a ton from this budget bill. If you make under $100,000, $150,000, this bill is going to absolutely screw you. You're going to literally hand your money so that people making over $4 million can get an extra $300,000 in tax cuts. And I'm not even factoring in the fact that this is going to take more. This is going to basically bring us back to pre-Affordable Care Act health insurance, where there was tons of people dying in our country who couldn't access health insurance. Donald Trump then gave a disastrous interview with Maria Bartiromo this morning on Fox. Donald Trump is talking about all the deals that he's making. He's actually making no deals. And then he brings up on his own that we have a buyer for TikTok, he says, to which Bartiromo says, who? He goes, I'll tell you in ding, 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 2 weeks, he says. He says, 2 weeks, I got to get you. Play this clip.
No big deal. It's like TikTok. I'm extending that, but no big deal. We have a buyer for TikTok, by the way. I think I'll need probably China approval, and I think President Xi will probably do it.
Who's buying?
I'll tell you in about 2 weeks.
A big technology company there.
Very, very wealthy people. It's a group of very wealthy people. But what I want to do is, and what I will do just sometime prior to the 9th, is we'll send a letter to all these countries. There's 200 countries. You can't talk to all of them. No matter how many people you have, you can't talk to all of them.
It's the most embarrassing thing that this guy says 2 weeks about everything. 2 weeks for the healthcare plan. 2 weeks and I'm going to figure out, am I going to sanction Russia, which he never does. Give me 2 weeks and I'll come back with it. It's the most ridiculous, weak, pathetic stuff. He has no plan. He doesn't know what he's talking about. And he's pushing the United States every single day into a position of weakness and, frankly, international humiliation. And he lives in his own fictitious world that doesn't exist. He talks about the trip to NATO. And he goes, when I went to the Netherlands, he said, the world leaders now wanted to talk to America. He goes, under Biden, nobody wanted to talk to us. And now everybody was like, oh, Donald, I want to speak to you now because you're in charge. What are you everybody was laughing at you. They were literally mocking you there for how weak and pathetic you are. And people actually respected former President Biden. But what a delusional world. Like, just, you've got this guy with his face painted orange, who's not speaking in complete sentences. Blah, 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 blah. It's the most ridiculous thing in the world, just speaking gibberish right here. Here, play this clip.
And, I was in that beautiful place with the king and the queen, and there's like beautiful, everything's so nice. But when I went to the Netherlands and I looked, everybody was coming up, Mr. President, Mr. President. They didn't do that a year ago or 2 years ago or 3 years ago. These are the big countries. This is Germany and France and all of them. I mean, a big group of countries. They respect America again. They laughed at us. They thought we were a joke. You had a president that kept falling downstairs and falling on stages and couldn't find an entrance.
And then he goes on to again say that the United States should conquer Canada. He again attacks Canada's sovereignty, and he attacks the USMCA, the United States Mexico-Canada agreement, which he was the one who negotiated. Here, play this clip.
And I was in that beautiful place with the king and the queen, and it was like beautiful. Everything's so nice. But when I went to the Netherlands and I looked, everybody was coming up, Mr. President, Mr. President. They didn't do that a year ago or 2 years ago or 3 years ago. These are the big countries. This is Germany and France and all of them. I mean, a big group of countries. They respect America again. They laughed at us. They thought we were a joke. You had a president that kept falling downstairs and falling on stages and couldn't find an entrance.
Donald Trump then threatens the city of New York and says, whoever's the mayor of New York, you better behave or the federal government is coming for you. Here, play this clip.
I have everybody, so I don't want to get into that. I can tell you this, whoever's mayor of New York is going to have to behave themselves or the federal government is coming down very tough on them financially.
You said you're stopping all.
Remember those Tea Party MAGA Republicans with the don't tread on me? Remember the states' rights folks, right? But now, I guess, according to our fascist right-wing Supreme Court and Donald Trump, states' rights means the federal government decides, oh, we don't like your state because you have diversity, or you have immigrants in your state, or you're a thriving state. Let's use the federal government to attack the states that are the donor states, like New York and California and other blue states and Massachusetts that are funding the failed red states, that are literally subsidizing the failed red states. And let's use the federal government to attack them. You know what states' rights means? Yeah, you may have a National Guard, California. Nice National Guard you have there. Oh, are they helping prevent more wildfires? Are they helping actually deal with fentanyl in the state and stopping drug cartels? Are they helping with the things that the National Guard is used by the governor? I want to take your National Guard, and you know what I want to do with them as the federal government? I want to place them as props around federal buildings and just have them stand there like they're bouncers at a club so we could project authoritarianism in the United States. Then Donald Trump says, look, he goes, of course the United States is hacking the telecom systems in China. That's just what we do. Here, play this clip.
And then didn't they hack into our telecom system? They've been stealing intellectual property. Fentanyl, COVID, I mean, all of this stuff. So how do you negotiate with obviously a bad actor and trust them on economics?
You don't think we do that to them? We do.
So
we do a lot of things.
That's the way the world works?
It's the way the world works. It's a nasty world.
And then you just do a trade deal?
We do. Well, we made a lot of money with this trade deal. I do a trade deal if it works. We made a lot of money with the trade deal.
Next, Donald Trump talks about how when the chairman of the Federal Reserve, Jerome Powell's term is up, that Donald Trump is going to handpick somebody there who's going to lower the interest rates to 1% or 2% because that's what Donald Trump wants them to be, which, by the way, lowering interest rates in theory is would be great. The issue is you need a nonpartisan Federal Reserve that is independent to assess if you drop the interest rates precipitously like that, will you cause a massive surge in inflation and lead to a Great Depression? That's why it is a difficult decision sometimes for the Federal Reserve to say, we can't do interest rate cuts, as great as they would be, because we have to balance the overall economic outlook of the country. Here's what Donald Trump says. Let's play it.
It's their turn to do it, and they won't do it. There are a lot of bad people in the Democrat Party.
How are you going to deal with the $9 trillion that's coming due this year?
Just turn it over. Oh, well, let me tell you that we're going to do it this way. We're going to turn it over short term because we have a stupid person at the Fed. If he would lower the rates, but I don't want to have to pay for 10 years debt at a higher rate. And then when you get somebody into the Fed who's going to be able to lower the rates, we should be at 1% or 2%. If you look at Switzerland, they're the lowest right now. They're at much less than 1 point. And frankly, we should be there too, because without the United States, the whole world doesn't work.
And you
And then Donald Trump goes, oh, enrichment doesn't mean air conditioning. What's he even talking about? Play this clip.
Oh, it's their turn to do it, and they won't do it. There are a lot of bad people in the Democrat Party.
How are you going to deal with the $9 trillion that's coming due this year?
Just turn it over. Oh, well, let me tell you that we're going to do it this way. We're going to turn it over short term because we have a stupid person at the Fed. If he would lower the rates, but I don't want to have to pay for 10 years debt at a higher rate. And then when you get somebody into the Fed who's going to be able to lower the rates, we should be at 1% or 2%. You know, if you look at Switzerland, they're the lowest right now. They're at much less than 1 point. And frankly, we should be there too, because without the United States, the whole world doesn't work.
And
So you probably saw from my last reporting that Donald Trump made a post where he extorted the courts in Israel and extorted people in Israel who don't support Netanyahu. Netanyahu's being criminally prosecuted. Netanyahu's a criminal. Okay? Benjamin Netanyahu is a criminal being prosecuted in Israel for being a criminal. Like, that's the reality of what's going on in Israel. So what Donald Trump said is that's a witch hunt. And he said, if you continue to prosecute Netanyahu within Israel, within your own justice system, the U.S. will cut off all military support for Israel. That's Donald Trump's priorities right now. While Americans can't afford housing, while Americans live paycheck to paycheck, while Americans are about to be taken off health care, while Americans are suffering each and every day, this is Donald Trump's priorities. And guess what? The court canceled Israel Prime Minister Netanyahu's trial hearings for the week. Oh, surprise, surprise. Democratic Senator Brian Schatz from Hawaii says the following about the disastrous budget bill, and I want to leave you with some of these thoughts right here. This is the biggest wealth transfer in American history from working class, low income, and middle class to the wealthiest. It will kill solar industry, raising prices. It has almost $1 trillion cut to Medicaid to pay for the $1 trillion tax cuts to the billionaires. We kill the poor and low income and working class so that the rich can buy more private jets and yachts, and Jeff Bezos can throw more foam parties with his stepson and his wife while grinding on his wife in a bikini in front of his stepson. Normal behavior. Nursing homes will be shutting down. 1 in 4, maybe more, nursing homes will be shutting down. I saw about 40% of rural hospitals could be shutting down. Energy shortages, $4.5 trillion in new debt. The bill is even worse than you think. And that's where we're at right now, by the way, folks. So we'll keep you posted every step of the way. Hit subscribe. Let's get to 6 million subscribers.
New Midas merch drop! Check out the latest pro-democracy sticker packs, t-shirts, hats, sweatshirts, and more. All at store.midastouch.com.